Are you in the right place? All right. How many of you do actually practice SEO? Okay, good. You're in the good company. For the rest of you, you're in for a ride. Okay. All right. I'm Sid. I work with Bruce Clay, and we've been doing search engine optimization since 1996. That's a long time ago. The company was founded by Bruce in California, and he's grown into many countries across the world. And I personally have, the session, I'll talk a little bit about the session, what we're doing. So it's unpacking Googler's comments on SEO. So a lot of you who are SEO people, you will know that Google tends to have its own advocates who give out comments about what is right and wrong in SEO. And I'll talk a little bit about the people who we follow as well, because they're the good people to get the correct knowledge about what's happening from a Google perspective. And as I was talking about our own company, we have written the book on search engine optimizations, the Dummy series. It's 800 pages. It's a really good night. You read it and you can go to sleep well. It talks about a lot of topics, tech, coding, whatever you want to know. It's 800 pages. It's available on Amazon. It's in fact in its 4th edition now. We also have a blog. We've got thousands of people who follow us on the blog. And we've also built our own proprietary SEO software over the years, which lots and lots of people across the world use as well. And then we have a training program. We've trained over 5,000 people globally in our training program. All right, so meet the Googlers. Are any of you familiar with these faces? Yeah, the SEOs I'm sure would know these people. What about the rest? Do any of you know any of these? No? All right. Quick intro. John Mueller, search advocate. He's very vocal about topics on SEO. There's a search channel on Google called Google Search Central. It's on YouTube. And I'll show you, as I go through my slides, there will be a YouTube video link. So you can, at least have a look where it is, so you can type in and follow that as well. Gary Elias is another guy. He's very active on Twitter. He tweets a lot, so you can find him on Twitter. Danny Sullivan, he's been around since the early 90s as well. Danny used to run Search Engine Land, I think it was, which is a very powerful industry publication. And then he switched to Google a few years back, and he's their search liaison. Daniel, I don't know as much about him. I come across him from time to time. He's also a search advocate with Google. Martin, he's more on the coding developer side of things, so he talks more from a tech perspective. And Aurora, she makes really funny videos, by the way. I discovered her more recently, and she makes some really cool videos talking about content, etc. as well. So highly recommend watching some fun stuff from her. All right, so the first one is something that SEOs absolutely love to talk about, right? Links. You think SEO and everyone just thinks links. How many of you over here believe that links are the #1 ranking factor if you want your website to rise up in Google? Come on, show of hands. One. Big hand up. Sarah, big hand up. Come on. More people? No? All right, there's a second one. You get to sit in the front. It's easy for me to say. All right. So look, links. If some of you want to know a little bit about Google history, links was how Google differentiated itself, its algorithm. If you think about the Google algorithm, not many of you over here are my age and would remember the late 90s, early 2000s, when there was a whole bunch of search engines out there, right? There was LookSmart, Alta Vista, there was a whole bunch of them. And their way of bringing the website up in rankings was content, the keywords. So the more times you use the keyword, the better the search engine thought your website is. So if you want to rank number one for, let's say, a beauty product, you would just type beauty product 100 times and your website would come up in rankings, right? And this led to a lot of people doing a lot of negative stuff. So what would they do? This is called black hat SEO, right? Now what's black hat SEO? You would type white text on white. So when you type white text on white, the human user doesn't see that text, but the search engine reads the code and finds everything. So you could write in white text on white, you could write beauty products 1,000 times and your website would come up, right? So this led to a lot of very poor quality results. So when Google came along in mid 1998, I think, they differentiated their algorithm and they said links, which is what, when another website links to you. So think of it like a voting system. So if another website links to you and says you're about this particular product, then that must be true, right? So that's how they came in and they differentiated themselves. And trivia, do you know Google went to Yahoo back in 1998 and said, I have a better search engine, because remember back that time, Yahoo was the #1 search engine, right? So when Google went in, and these were two young kids, Sergey and Larry, they had invented Google in their Stanford dormitory, because the thing is, I think he was trying to order pizza, and he couldn't find a great website, and so he decided to invent his own search engine. Obviously, really, really solid people, so they knew what they were doing. It's not as if we just decide to dream up, oh, we can't find this, so let's build a search engine. They were really powerful guys. Anyhow, so they went to Yahoo, and they were wanting just $1 million. Yahoo kicked them out of the room saying, we are the #1, right? So that's trivia for you. So that's how links came about, and everyone started buying. There was a whole industry that developed around buying links. That's why this is one of the most popular topics in the SEO world, right? Links. Now, what's happened is, since then, Google started understanding that other people are gaming the system, because just like people started doing white text on white, black hat SEO, they started buying links. So rather than it being a natural, organic way, so someone said, okay, you run 10 different websites, all of you just link to me, I'll pay you this much money. And they made Google think that they are the #1 site for a particular thing. Okay? So in 2010, Google decided to upgrade their algorithm, and the reason for that was actually a peculiar case that happened. Look this up at some point. It's called Decor My Eyes. This guy was selling sunglasses, and what happened is he realized that links are a really powerful way. It doesn't matter whether the links are good, bad, or ugly. You just want links, right? So he started selling bad product to the customers, because then these customers would put bad reviews and link back to the site, and his site became #1. So he understood that, and he started gaming that, and he started sending bad stuff to them. Then there's this one particular lady who just wouldn't leave a negative review. So he sent a picture with Google Street View, I know where you live. So she went to the cops, and then that guy's in jail, by the way, now. So don't do this. And that led in 2011 or 12 for Google to release an update to its algorithm called Google Penguin, right? And that then looked at the sentiments of links. Like, is it a good link? Is it a bad link? What kind of link is it? So links, and these are tweets even from recent, like you can see that's 2019, 2020. It's a very, very hot topic. So links are no longer the #1 ranking factor from Google perspective, right? They are much more lower down the pecking order. If I had to look at the Google algorithm, initially, when they first launched, links would probably be 60-70%, right? And now I would drop it down to 20-30%, right? That's my perspective on how powerful the links have reduced in terms of value. And Gary Illyes here, he talks about how there are tons of websites out there which don't have any links at all and they still rank. So that tells you that links are no longer as powerful. Okay. If you run a smaller website, you might come across shared hosting, right? So you can host your website. You have to host your website somewhere, and you could have shared hosting, dedicated hosting, VPNs, cloud, all of that, right? So most small businesses tend to host a website in what's called a shared hosting scenario. Shared hosting, if you guys are familiar with, is where it's like, if you think of university dorm rooms, you're all sharing this. When you're much more wealthier, you have your own house, private, right? Same thing with websites. Shared hosting is many websites on one server, and dedicated hosting is where you have one server, one website, right? So in the SEO world, it is also believed commonly that dedicated hosting is a much better way in terms of ranking on Google, right? Now, what John Mueller has said is that's not necessarily true. You can actually be on a shared server, and that's absolutely fine, right? Now, my own perspective on that though is, yes, that's absolutely fine, but what happens when you're sharing the room with 100 other people, or the website in this case with 100 other websites, someone's running a lot of promotions. The server, if you think about it, can only take a certain amount of load, right? So the other people, what they're doing on their website and the amount of traffic they'll get is going to impact you. So you don't want your website slowing down because the server can only do so much. So I would still say, if you can afford it, go dedicated hosting. Till the time you can't afford it, drive a second-hand car. Share hosting, right? Content. Oh, content is a really big factor. And by the way, this is the lady I was talking to you about, Aurora. That's the YouTube video, and you just look her up, you'll find it. You can even do Aurora and Google Search Central on YouTube. Really great videos she makes. So she's talking about content, and content has really become a very powerful factor if you want to rank on the Google search engine. So now people talk about, does the content quality matter? Because again, what happened is, as people understood that content is important from a website's perspective, people just started creating content. They don't look at the kind of quality of content that is being made, right? So it's very important, because what then starts happening is machine-generated content, duplicated content. So you just take content from one website, copy paste it and put it into another. Or you could say, okay, I'll take it from 3 different websites and merge it and put it onto mine. So no one's creating their original content, they're just going and publishing all this low quality content. And that's not acceptable to Google, right? So if you're doing that, it's going to be of absolutely no use, you're just wasting your time. Similar thing with auto-generated thin affiliate content. Some people, a lot of people actually, have affiliate websites. And what they tend to do is then they write content which they just take from other affiliate websites. That's not going to help your cause. Why would Google rank your website if the content is exactly the same as you can find on other websites, right? So if you want to rank, you have to create original content. Doorway pages is another problem, where people, what they tend to do is they think, okay, I've got all these keywords that are important to me. So as an example, let's say if you were in the beauty product business, you might say, okay, beauty products for hair, beauty products for makeup, you create. And then you start creating all these pages, but the end goal is you want to take them to one page. So you're funneling all the people into one page. If you're trying to do something like that, or when you create lots of, in that particular example itself. So when you do that, it's called funneling them to one particular page. So again, Google does not like that. So you see this when people create domains. They'll create multiple domains, one for each little product or service of theirs. It's not going to help you, so don't do that. If you have a really big website, and you've got poor quality content, and this comes more into play when you're talking e-commerce websites, where they have filters, and because of the filters, like let's say you're selling shirts, and you've got a shirt in white, blue, brown, green, pink, and all of those colors have their own individual pages, right? All you're doing is, actually it's only one product, but you've just created maybe 10 different pages for it. So you're just sending Google, you're confusing Google by doing 10 different pages for that. So you should have just one page, and you need to do what's called canonicalization, where you say, this is my original page, and the other pages are just a duplicate of this. Or don't create those 10 pages, just create one and mention I've got all these different colors, right? So that's what here we are talking about in terms of content quality. Let's talk about blogs. You know those comments that you get under blogs, right? So what happens is, I'm not sure how many people realize, but Google actually counts that as part of the main content of the page, right? And because of that, do you know how many crappy comments are there when you go and read websites? It could be from bad, malicious things like Viagra and porn and sex and all of those, and it could be casino, on all those kind of things, right? So here's Gary, he's saying, burn those comments with fire, right? So that's Google telling you that don't put low quality content on your page, and you are responsible. So that's user generated content, right? But that UGC, you're responsible because it's your website. It's just like if someone comes into your house and creates a commotion, at the end of the day, it's you who is responsible for it. So it's the same thing here. That website is yours, so you need to moderate those comments. Otherwise, it's going to destroy the quality of your websites. People talk about if comments matter, and that's the case, then we can pay people to write comments and increase the content on the page. As per Google, they have a way of figuring that out. Someone asks the question, so how do you figure it out? And Gary says, if I tell you, then everyone will again game the system. So he doesn't want to tell you how it's done. But basically, the essence of it is blog comments will impact the quality of your website, and therefore you are responsible for it, and make sure that you the content of the comments is good. So what can you do? Moderate, right? Don't put it on an auto feature where as soon as a comment comes in, it automatically gets loaded. Have it where it goes and sits in a place where you have to moderate it. If you're a very big website, then you will have someone who's looking after it for you. Make sure that person is assigned. And then only the ones which are good comments, you allow them to go on. Right? So that's what we want to do. Okay. URL structures. A little bit more technical, but basically this is the website address, right? And you know, as you go through the website, it will have many, many pages, right? You might even build landing pages for your paid search campaigns, you might create. So all those pages is what we are talking about here when you're talking about a URL structure. Right? Now, I don't know how many of you know, but if you have a website that loads with, when you do www.website name, and you also do it without www, and in both cases, it creates, you actually open the website with that exact URL address. It will open, but I'm saying if it opens with the exact same URL address, then you have basically got what's called a duplicate website. And if you've got a duplicate website, then that's not going to be good for you because your rank is getting split between those two different websites. Similarly, when you have a URL, and you know how at the end of the URL you have a slash, and sometimes you don't have it and you can open it both ways. If that's happening, again, that's duplicate pages being created, right? So from a user perspective, there's no problem at all. But from a search engine perspective, they've just seen two different pages, right? So therefore what they talk about is, and especially if you start now going into site migration, like you say, okay, I want to create a new site, or I want to create new pages, right? And you just move things along from one side to the other. Now for the search engine, these URL structures will make a big difference. So you need to understand what all you can do. So when you do this, John Mueller here is talking about, make sure you do the research, create a list of all the old, especially this is talking more in terms of migration, when you're moving your website from one to the other. It could be a platform change and you're moving it, or you're doing a design change and you're creating new content, etc. All of that. So when you're doing all of that, you need to make sure you create a list of all your old URLs, map it out into where in the new structure they will go, right? So left column, old URLs, new URLs in the second column, and then do what's called a 301 redirect. Right? 301 is a permanent. Now, for us, people who are not techies, you can ask your server team and they will make sure they do this, right? And you do a 301 redirect from one page to the other, right? And then also make sure you internally, if your internal links were happening from one page to the other, make sure you update them as well. Don't just leave it on the basis of the 301 redirect. And you need to monitor the migration. You need to upload what's called an XML sitemap. Again, a little bit more technical, right? But don't go to sleep on that. It's all fine. Ask your web server team and they will do that for you. Ooh. Has one of you experienced a traffic drop on your website? Yeah? What was that experience like? Not great? Yeah, I wouldn't feel great either. So understanding why that website traffic drop is very important. Now, how do you do that? You should have something called Google Search Console, GSC, right? It's a dashboard that Google is giving you to monitor your website health. It tells you all the traffic information. It tells you what kind of keywords people are typing into the search engine to bring them to your website, right? Now, when you look at all that information, you're wanting to look at that line of traffic that's coming through. If you see it's dropped down, right? So that could be a reason that, okay, so you know which date it dropped down. You could then go back and see, did you do something around that date? Was there a move on your website? Was there something big implemented on your website? That could have triggered it, right? Or Google does an algorithm update from time to time. So was it a Google algorithm? So you have to see, was the date coinciding with that Google algorithm update, which caused it to drop in rankings? Sometimes it's actually good news. You think it's a massive drop in traffic, but actually it's seasonality, right? So what you want to also do is compare the data against previous year's data, right? And there'll be a lot of times that I'm telling you, I've had clients who are saying, oh man, I've had such a big drop in traffic. And then you analyze it, and especially if it's a newer client, because you don't know them so well. But then you look at Google Trends, you figure out what the trend is, you look at previous year's data and you go back to them and say, hey, right, it's just a seasonal drop in traffic. So they're so happy to hear about that, right? So that's all. Another one could be a new competitor has come along or a new product has launched which is similar to yours. So it's just that the search traffic has dipped, right? So there's not so much interest in your product anymore, right? Bad news, but at least you know that that's the reason for your traffic drop. So that's how you would sort of figure out how your traffic has dropped and what could be the reason. And once you know the reason, then you know what you can do to get the traffic to come back. Ooh. How many times do I get asked, how much content should I write? Right? How much content should there be on a page? Here, that's Martin. He loves to wear this wig during his presentations. That's his thing. I won't tell you what's my thing. But basically, he's basically saying in this video, there is no such thing as one particular word count, right? So it's not, I'm writing about beauty products, so I have to write 1,000 words on the page. I'm talking about cars, so I need to write 700 words on the page. There is no one word count limitation, right? It will actually differ based on your product, your service, what you're talking about. Now, my secret on this, I have a look at what is Google rewarding. So I look at that first page of search results and I see what's the average that people have written. Is Google rewarding long form content or smaller bits of content, right? So I then look at that and I weed out stuff like, okay, if it's Wikipedia, that's ranking, that's not similar to what I'm doing. Or if it's something else that people have done, if it's not what I'm doing, I only look at the sites that look like mine. And then I figure out, okay, this is the amount of content I need to write on the page, right? And so that could be 1,000 or 2,000 words. It will come down to your user search query and what Google is rewarding. So that's the way to look at it. There's no one definition for it. People ask, how important is it to write the title tag or a description tag or a keyword tag for the page, right? Now, every single page on your website needs to have a unique title, a unique description, right? And people are asking about this. Just by the way, keywords tag, the keywords tag is no longer in use. So if you don't write the keywords tag, that's absolutely fine. In 2009, Google stopped using the keywords tag because again, black hat SEO practices, people would just stuff those with keywords. So I want to go to the bar, the pub, the tavern, pubs, bars, taverns, singular, plural, all of that. They would stuff it in, right? So Google has got rid of the keywords tag. They don't consider that anymore. But the title, it's incredibly important, right? It tells Google what that page is about. So having a unique title is very, very important. If you've got 1,000 pages on your website, every single one, so you have to have 1,000 different title tags. I come across sometimes now, but many years ago there were still many who would have home across all the pages on the website. Home is written, right? Or it would just be a brand name and that's about it, right? You need to have a unique title. The description, it's another great. It might not directly be a ranking factor, but think about this. I look at titles and descriptions. This is what appears on the first page of Google. So don't you think these are like small ad copies, right? So the way you have to approach them is as if they were a small ad copy, and you have to actually spend time creating a really kick-ass ad copy, right? So you want to have a really good title and a description because that's what's going to get what's called CTR, click-through rate. That's going to get, and I believe that in a way will help Google's algorithm because that will tell Google that, oh, this is pretty important, that's why people are clicking on it. So in an indirect way, then the description tag becomes a ranking factor as well from that perspective. How many times do I get asked this question? How long does SEO take for new pages? And the answer is, it depends, right? It depends on what your website is, it depends on what your product is, it depends on your competitors, all of that, right? But what is it that you can do, what's in your hand, is if you have got a new page, you've just created a new page of content, what you can do is to speed things up. You want to make sure, first of all, the page is accessible. I've had this, where developers have created new sites, and after many months, it's still not indexed because they never had an SEO on board. The site went live, and it was because in the development stage that's called no index. There's a no index tag, and they put that no index tag because they don't want Google looking at it, etc., right? And they leave it there. And many months later, this whole marketing campaign and everything is going on, and the page is not found on Google because they have left the no index tag on, right? Now, that no index can be on a page level, so Meta Robots no index, or it can be through what's called a robots.txt file, which you upload, and over there it could be no index. You want to remove the indexing. So you want to make sure you've not created those basic errors. You want to make sure if you've got a new page, or let's say it's a new blog you've uploaded, make sure it's linked from your homepage somehow, because if it's linked from your homepage, the chances of Google discovering the content is going to be quick, much more quick, right? And then one really easy way is you can go into, remember I told you the Google Search Console, the dashboard that Google gives you. You can go in there and you can ask Google to index that page. So you can send it for indexing, crawling and indexing, right? So those are all the things that you can do. And then, and there's one more. You can upload that page into what's called your XML sitemap. So upload that page into the XML sitemap and send it to Google. So that's another way you can do it. Right. We are actually out of time. I was told 1:10. When does the next session start? I don't want to. 1:15, all right? So how about I finalize this presentation now, and you will have enough time to go to the next one because it might be better and you don't want to miss on it. And it'll give you some time to freshen yourself up after a sleepy session. All right, thank you so much, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it.